Okay. 3, 2, 1, clap.
That's pretty
Just
good.
line up the clap. We're good.
Yeah, okay. Cool. We're bringing back the weekend edition, ladies and gentlemen, and that means I am bringing back the man, the myth, the legend, the person that everyone loves to hate on my channel, Jimmy Champagne. He runs the PlayStation equivalent of Xbox Ready, PS Ready, but y'all gotta give him some slack. He has a long history with Xbox. Not only does he have both Xbox consoles, he was there for the launch of the Series X, one of the first people to see the Series X in person. He was one of the first people to play Gears of War 5. So he knows what he's talking about. And I thought I would bring him on here because, you know, there's a lot going on with Xbox right now with the release of Starfield.
I feel like I'm a news anchor because I have an AirPod in, so I can hear Ray coming in. I got the FaceTime next to my phone here, or next to my camera.
Hell yeah, dude. Well, like, we're like a week or so into people having this game through early access. Plus, like, you know, we had review copies.
Right.
Like, it seems to be like the reception of this game is pretty good. And I was talking about it in another video that it's selling a ton of copies, like for the early access premium edition upgrades and just a straight premium edition. Ton of people are playing it on Steam in early access. And so it seems to be received pretty freaking well. What is your kind of take? Like, give us the PlayStation take. Give us like the, you know, the Fallout fan take as well.
So yeah, it hit like over 200,000 concurrent players on Steam, which that's not how many people bought it. That's how many people played it at the same time, which that's an extremely high concurrent number, like just in general. But having it hit that when the game is going to be like free in just a week after the early access launch, that's absolutely crazy. And you know the game's good when it doesn't run all that well. Like people who have 4090s are able to brute force their way past the like 60 FPS limit, but people with like 3090 Ti's and like i9 processors and 4070s and 4080s, they are hitting a brick wall with this game when you go to places like Aquila and New Atlantis. A lot of people were complaining day one, right? They were saying, this feels like Fast Travel Simulator, the game. I'm not really into it. And then the weird thing has happened over the past week where like the more people play it, the tide just turns, and the more they get into it, the more they...
This video is brought to you by Ipsos iSay. Ipsos iSay is a survey company that wants your opinion in exchange for points that you can use on digital rewards. With Ipsos iSay, you'll take part in market research by completing surveys. The surveys are tailored to things that you're experienced with, things that you're interested in. A lot of the surveys that I take, for example, have a lot to do with the gaming consoles that I own, what operating systems that I use, what games I'm currently playing. They're quick, easy, it's a super straightforward process. Once you complete these surveys, you get points that show up as these little stars that appear next to your account name. You can then use those points to redeem digital gift cards to places like Walmart, Target, Subway, Amazon, and you can even redeem them straight into your PayPal account. I've been doing a lot of traveling recently, so I've been peppering in some surveys while I'm waiting at my gate instead of just doom scrolling on whatever social media app. I even got enough points to get a $10 Amazon gift card, which I then turned around and used on an Xbox gift card, which helped me pay for my Game Pass Ultimate subscription this month. Click the link below to start earning with Ipsos iSay today. Thanks again to Ipsos iSay for sponsoring this video.
Definitely my experience with it. Like at first I was like, man, there is a lot of fast travel in this. I talked to you about it. I was like, I don't know about this whole like exploration thing because everything is revealed to you when you just click on a planet. That doesn't feel like you're discovering anything. But now I'm like 35 hours in. I actually had to start over my 20-hour save with my like Constellation Steam edition, and I didn't really care because the game is so much fun. I got a ton of legendary weapons, I got a legendary ship, and I'm having a different experience from everyone else, which makes it really cool. But yeah, performance issues aside, I think it's like a really strong launch. Obviously for Xbox, they got to be stoked, right? That people are paying for it, even though they can get it for free.
Yeah, I know, like, they must be stoked over there, man, because there was a lot of questions going into this generation, like, how the hell are these guys going to make money off of their games if they are almost giving them away for free through Game Pass? I say almost because, yes, you have to have the subscription, but, you know, they're putting it day one on Game Pass. How are they going to make money? How do they define success for a game? And it's like, if you're sitting there, if you're the Xbox leadership and you're looking at this, a ton of people are paying for it to just play early access. Not even just the base version of the game. They're paying to play it in early access, $100 or $35 if you're playing it through Game Pass. And all those people, like you're saying, know damn well that it's coming to Game Pass, and they're still willing to pay the dough. So that must be super exciting. I wonder if that's something they could replicate going forward into this generation, because not every game that they're going to release is going to be a Starfield level experience, right? But I feel like if they release, like, you know, they have like a huge banger like Starfield, but they just support it with like these smaller games that we've been seeing from them, like Pentiment, like Grounded, all those Obsidian games, you know. I wonder how it's going to last going into the future. But very exciting for now. And it's definitely way freaking better than like Redfall launching and everyone like it just tanking. It's like, it's a good feeling when it works out. Like, obviously there's some haters on Starfield. There are people that have their critiques, and I think it's fair. But it's nice to see that so many people are enjoying the game, despite, you know, things being buggy, like people falling out of the sky, like some really ugly NPCs, whatever.
Yeah, the difference between Xbox Game Pass and PlayStation Extras library is that you get everything day one, whereas on PS5, I was just talking about this, there's not really a huge reason to pay for that extra library if you've been a PlayStation fan for a long time, because a lot of the big games that they add, like Demon Souls, Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, Returnal, Spider-Man for a minute before they removed it, 99% of PlayStation players who have had a PlayStation 4 and moved on to the PS5 have played the vast majority of those games. And you do get a few day one games, like Stray was a big one, and Sea of Stars just came to Extra and Game Pass. But if you're keeping up with the newest games already, there's not really a huge reason for you to pay a little bit more money for that library. Where on Xbox, you're getting indie games day one, you're getting AAA games day one, and if you just want to pay 30 extra bucks, you can play early access like people have been doing with Starfield. And clearly that is the thing that Microsoft is going to go for, because I remember back when Forza Horizon 5 came out, right around when you started this channel, the same thing happened, and people were paying 30 bucks to play it early. So clearly, even though the game isn't really an early access, right? Like, it's ready to go, they're launching it, soft launching it, they're just charging 30 bucks for that week early access. People don't really care, or the people who do care are getting drowned out by the people who are just happy to get the game a little bit early, get a little extra content for it, and have more fun playing it early than other people.
I want to go back to something you said earlier about like fast travel simulator. I've definitely seen that being thrown around to describe this game, you know, on Reddit, on Twitter, or X. I gotta keep that in my mind. It's X. And I think the expectation going into this game was like each planet was going to be like the Commonwealth, like Skyrim, you know, and like have that kind of exploration aspect. But it's turning out to be like the whole universe is like we should be looking at it as like the whole universe, not just like individual planets and what's on those. Because it is kind of confusing sometimes when it's like I have to warp sometimes with my ship, but sometimes I could just fast travel to like places I've already been without warping. Like I just show up there. That was a little bit confusing to me, but it's also like kind of convenient as well. Like I'm already fast traveling a bunch. Like that's probably what I would have done anyway, like in other open world stuff.
Yeah, and one thing I kind of realized that the game doesn't tell you, there's a lot, that's a big problem. The game doesn't, like, kind of just throws you into it and goes figure it out a little bit. It does, which is good. I hate when story modes kind of tutorialize everything, and this one does a little bit at the beginning, but then it takes the training wheels off really quick, which is cool. But I started using the scanner where you can like look around and you see those diamond like waypoint markers, and then it'll say unknown. And I was like, oh, I clicked A on it, and then it's like structure, and then I walk there, and then I have like a whole dungeon I can complete. So it is like the mini Skyrim experience in the planets, and your mileage definitely varies, right? Like if you get a really cool planet, like there's one where you find a bunch of anomaly sort of monument things, that planet looks really cool, and it's the same for everyone. But you could also get a planet that's like a weird desert with a bunch of crabs on it, and that one sucks. But yeah,
there
have
like,
been
what
a few.
is this? And you're like, oh, it's because it's like sub-zero temperatures. It's probably not like a lot going on.
On PC, they really got to add in DLSS. I paid for the $5 mod, and it like totally fixes everything. You can get up to 120 FPS in it, and that's awesome. The mod's cool, but I want it officially in there. And it seems like something's going on with AMD where they have these like exclusive deals, because Jedi Survivor, right after all this backlash for Starfield, just got a patch today where they just miraculously added in DLSS. And it's like, well, maybe Starfield will get it.
It didn't take too long at all. But yeah, I'm like, is the game perfect? No. But it's fun. Like, and at first I wasn't so sure. Like you were saying, like the first couple of hours, I was like, I don't know. I even texted you. I was like, I don't know, bro. But like,
I don't know about this.
We all have collectively come to this conclusion. Like, it gets stronger as it goes on, and it's passing my like current test of whether or not I like the game or whether or not it's good. Is like, I keep coming back to play it. Like, I keep coming back to, like, I'm still investing time in it, and that is hugely telling for me. Yeah, and I kind of mentioned this earlier, but the Series S. There's still a lot of discourse around the Series S, what it cannot do. Quite like the most controversial console out there on the market right now.
But people like it, so who cares,
it's
right?
A shame.
Like, if people are buying it, support it.
We like it. I have one. You have one. Our friend
Kelsey
Matt, who's
loves
sitting
it.
right there, has one. That's 3 Series S's. But yeah, so there's a lot of stuff like, ignoring all the Baldur's Gate 3 stuff, like that's kind of how it started. Because, definitely not holding Baldur's Gate 3 back anymore from coming to Xbox, because it is coming to Xbox now. But I don't know if you've been keeping up with the news with Quantum Error and Team Kill Media, the team behind it. They were like, the Series S version of our game is unacceptable. It sucks. It runs like crap and it looks like doo-doo.
I don't know about that game, because have you seen trailers for it?
I have. It just looks kind of like a...
on Twitter,
like,
they act like it's going to be like Cyberpunk 2078. And then when you look at the game, it looks like a linear Unreal Engine 5 survival horror game with terrible face animations. So I don't know. And then with Baldur's Gate, I was like, what is it, just that they don't want it running at like 20 FPS a little bit when you're in split screen mode? But then I saw a video today that when you're doing split screen on the PlayStation 5, it can go as low as like 12 FPS. So I'm like, I guess it must have been going to like single digits on the Series S, and they were like, this is actually unplayable. Because when I was a kid, I'd put up with tons of slowdown. I thought it was fine. I thought it was a feature in the game. But then now I'm like, I would not be able to tolerate that. And I feel like more people are wise to it now that we had this half generation where everything was 60 FPS, and now we're like, wait, what let's get that back,
I know, like going from playing Starfield at not 60 FPS on PC, it was kind of like hovering like all over the place.
It's like 50. It's like 50, 52, 60-ish,
Yeah. And then going to Xbox and playing that on 30, I was like, whoa, it took a little bit to get adjusted to it. Took the motion blur off. That helped immensely. Take the motion blur off if you're kind of looking at this like, oh, this frame rate is kind of whack. Motion blur off, it'll solve your problems. But yeah, that's kind of crazy. I didn't see that about Baldur's Gate split screen on PlayStation 5. Because even
it must have been in the city or something. It was on Twitter, so it was probably like they pinpointed one spot where it was running like crap. But like the fact that it can go that low is pretty wild.
Because even on my Razer, the laptop, split screen running that in like the Druid's Grove and like some of the cities and stuff, it's like it takes a hit, especially because it's untethered. Like you can do completely freaking different things. So I'm sure that has a lot to do with what like the processing of this game on either a console or a PC. But that's crazy. So no wonder why they're having like maybe a little bit of trouble like running split screen on the Series S. But it is interesting that they decided to drop the split screen requirement in order to get Baldur's Gate 3 on Xbox. That's kind of like something we were talking about like months ago. Do you think that's something that they're going to continue with like going forward, or like is this just a one-time thing?
I think they'll continue to do what they've been doing, which is when someone complains about something with the Series S, they send out a team of engineers, right, from Microsoft to go help them out with it. And then I'm assuming that these engineers were like, this ain't gonna work, man. Like, we're not gonna get this thing running with split screen. So I feel like they're still gonna have that check, because they don't want it to get to the point where everyone's like, oh, we can shorten dev time on this game and release it earlier if we don't have to worry about the Series S. Let's do that, right? Like, Microsoft's sitting there saying, oh, well, this is our best-selling console right now. People really love this thing. We still want to make sure it's supported like crazy. But if there's a feature feature like like split screen, for example, that not everyone's going to use when they play this game realistically, that they can drop and then you get good performance out of the game, I feel like they'll be like, all right, cool, let's do that. But I don't think they're going to give everyone carte blanche now. It's going to be still a case by case basis because Baldur's Gate is just so big. It's like you can't not have that on Xbox. I feel like that was also a big contributing factor.
Yeah, I mean, especially when, it's like an accidental PS5 exclusive. Like, there's no way that could happen.
Yeah.
And it would kind of
which is
ruin.
crazy how many people were like, oh, Baldur's Gate, man, this is the new RPG from Sony. It's going to be sick. This is taking on Starfield. And then they play it and it's like slow and conversation based. It's not like Skyrim, you know? And then everyone just shut up because they were like, I didn't really realize what this game was when I started aggressively shilling for it.
Yeah, it's like, I'm a fan of D&D, as you know, as you've often made fun of me for.
I just played it for an ad spot and I got sucked into it. I realized I was supposed to play like 10 minutes and I played for like 40 and I was like, okay, this is pretty good.
It's a good game, and there's some people I know out there who don't care about games like Baldur's Gate 3, especially because it's turn-based, it's role-play based, it's conversational based, but I feel like it's a win to have this game on Xbox consoles, even though they had to make the concession of, okay, no split screen on the Series S. But I feel like that's pretty reasonable, though. I feel like that's pretty reasonable. If you're a Series S owner and you were planning on playing it split screen, I'm sorry, I'm sure that's a bummer, but I feel like it is worth it to get this game on the platform. And, you could always upgrade, like trade it in and get a Series X if you don't want to miss out on those features. I know people hate it when we say stuff like that, but I feel like that's pretty reasonable. Like, you buy the Series S.
It also has online co-op. So if you have a Series S, that's the cheap console, and your friend has one too, you guys can play online, and then you get the whole screen to yourself. How crazy is that?
Yep. So yeah, it's like, it seems like Xbox, they see how much people love the Series S, and it's like they've doubled down on it almost. They've released another Series S with a full terabyte of storage. Like, what do you think? Like, is that good move, bad move? What's the PlayStation perspective? What's the Jimmy Champagne perspective?
That's a great move because that was the biggest limiting factor, right? Like, you'd get the Series S, it has 500 gigs, and then I think like 80 or so of that was taken up by the OS roughly. So you're really working with like 420 gigs, and games are just too big now. So you'd have to go buy that Seagate expansion card, and then suddenly you've paid $500 for the price of a Series X and gotten an inferior console. So now they've made it where you can get it for that cheaper price and have the same storage as the Series X. That makes it even more of like a no-brainer purchase. Like, they've gotten rid of the one big caveat because they make sure every game comes to it. So it's not like, well, it has the storage now, but I'm not going to be able to play Baldur's Gate 3. It's like, no, you can play Baldur's Gate 3 and you get a terabyte or so of storage on the console. Like, the Series S has more storage in it than the PS5 does. So that's pretty good, right? Like, I don't really see how people can complain about this other than saying like, well, they should have upgraded the Series X too. I think they should have done that and made it maybe have 2 terabytes because the one thing that's fallen in price so much this year is memory costs. They're so much cheaper now.
That's an interesting take because they've already come out and said there's not going to be a mid-gen refresh for Xbox, right? And there are some rumors floating around, like, from Jeff Grubb and like other people about like a diskless Series X. But I hadn't even thought about like upgrading the storage on just the regular Series X as is, and maybe like just painting it white instead of black.
White one would be awesome. But those console wraps they have now are kind of like defeating the purpose of that. Like, you just put the little magnet thingy on. I don't really understand how they work. I watched a video and I was like, okay, it looks cool at the end. So
it's like,
but
it's mostly
there's
Velcro,
not a lot to
but like
criticize.
kind of magnet too. Yeah, because they sent one our way, and so it's mostly Velcro, and then you have the option to kind of like hook little bottom parts like into the bottom of the X. But I didn't do that. I just did the Velcro, and it looks pretty good. It looks pretty dang good. I like it.
They should have called it the Series S Elite. Like back in the day when they put out the 360 Elite that had the bigger hard drive, came with the headset, and they're like, this is the hardcore gamer edition, and it came with Indiana Jones Lego.
What would be the game they bundle in now? Would it be Starfield?
I mean, just get that out there, right? Like, get Starfield out there. It's like 1440p upscaled, 30 FPS. That's like the golden experience for them.
Yeah,
the upscaling's crazy though.
we know that freaking even this Black Series S is gonna tumble in price at some point. Last year we saw the White Series S go all the way down to 240, and that lasted for like well over a month from like Black Friday
Yeah.
through the holiday season. So like I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing this $350 Series S at like the 300 price range, maybe even like
That would
290
be
or something like
awesome.
that.
That's like you could buy, like I have little cousins that are in high school. I call them little because they were babies at one point and now they're old and it makes me upset. But if I was buying them a Christmas gift, like that price range, like 240, I'd get them both a Series S, right? Like I'd say
Yeah,
like this
dude.
is a gift for both of you. That's like a not no brainer for a gift, I would say, but like that's when you can consider it a gift for Christmas or something. And I think that's a great price. And they'll probably do a bundle again this year where you pay 240 and you get a year of Game Pass or something, or they bundle in Starfield. I don't know. There's a million things they could do, but I also like that they were talking about how Starfield is like opening the floodgates where they're going to have a new AAA game every X or so months until the end of time, and that's what they really need. So hopefully this is like their big winning like lap that they've needed for a while.
Yeah, and that's an interesting point because, since Redfall launched, it's been like, a lot of people have been questioning Xbox, like, and then the showcase happened and everyone was kind of hyped about it. It was like, oh, it was a great show. September rolls around. People seem to really like Starfield. It's selling a bunch. They're selling a bunch more consoles. They launched the Black Series S. What would you say is like the current state of Xbox? Like, as a PlayStation fan, as someone who's been following them for a long time, like, how would you rate their latest moves, I guess?
Thing for them right now is that they're in the same spot they were when Forza Horizon 5 came out, where it was like, yeah, this is awesome. Forza Horizon 5 comes out, wins Game of the Year at IGN. Everyone loves it. And then there's a huge drought of games. But this time around, if they are to be believed, they're not going to have the huge drought. And if they can stick to that, it's kind of like the same thing I said when that was all going on, where like that'll be really good. But having one big game out will get them a sales spike, I think, initially on the Xbox for people who want to play Starfield. But that's going to taper off pretty quickly. And they need to follow up with something big. But like Redfall, that was a big blunder, right? Everyone knows that. They just said, like, Pete Hines was doing an interview and he's like, oh, we're not giving up on it yet. I didn't really know if they had given up on it because they patched it once in June and they haven't done anything since. So him saying that kind of confirmed to me that they're gonna just do a relaunch of this game. They're just packing in all the optimizations and new characters and everything, and they'll do a relaunch like 2.0 edition, which is cool. I'm glad that they're sticking with the games they've put out, and even though they weren't great at launch, they're gonna be great eventually. But yeah, what I think they really need is more new games, and it looks like they've got them coming up. So hopefully in a year we can have this same conversation and we'll be like, yeah, the last year of Xbox games was awesome. And the timing is great for that to happen because Sony has been real quiet. They have Spider-Man 2 and then we don't know what's going to come after that. And it seems like they've been doing a lot of internal delays of their first party games. So if Xbox can have a year where they're just doing a game every month, not all AAA, but like indie game, AAA, indie game, AAA, and Sony's just sitting there like sitting on their hands waiting for their games to be done, that would be a huge win for Microsoft. And this is like the first time where I could see it happening.
Yeah, there seems to be kind of like an ebb and flow when it comes to these things, right? Like 2022, didn't hear a lot from Xbox. Sony managed to ship, obviously, Ragnarok and Horizon Forbidden West. And now the pendulum has kind of like swung back the other way, or potentially, if Xbox can't deliver on these projects. Because after Starfield, what do we got? We got Forza Motorsport coming in October. We have,
which looks awesome. Like that game looks sweet. I didn't realize there was progression in it, and now I'm like, they fixed my problem, right? Like they gave me a reason to play the game because I like cars. I'm into cars. I'm not like super into cars to the point where being able to drive a supercar in a game is going to get me to buy
cars.
it.
You're from Detroit.
Yeah.
Or
yeah, right.
Detroit.
And they never put the cars I like in games, you know. No Hellcats ever show up. So
not the Hellcat. Whipping that Hellcat. Dude,
then you never see a Dodge Demon, you never see any cool Mustangs, but yeah, I want to play that game. That looks awesome.
I am legally allowed to tell you guys that I tried out the Forza Motorsport preview back at like the end of August, but I'm not allowed to say anything until the embargo is done on September 11th. So look for my thoughts on the preview and my experience there after September 11th. I'll get back from Mexico from traveling and all that stuff, and I'll make a video. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, so they got Motorsport. I'm not so sure like what they got going into like. I'd have to refresh myself on what's coming in November, like November, December. But like 2024,
I feel like they're good
like,
with Starfield and Forza. Like those are two
that should
huge
carry
games
over like
Yeah.
for the rest of 2023.
Like Sony usually does one game at the end of the year, and they've got two AAA games, right? They've got a massive RPG and a racing game.
Yeah, and then going into 2024, we got, you know, some of the smaller games like Towerborn, and then also Microsoft Flight Simulator 2 is coming out, and then Stalker 2 should be coming to Game Pass in early 2024. That's not like an exclusive, but like, come on, like I'm looking forward to that game immensely. And then Avowed somewhere in that like first 2024 slot. So I feel like if they can deliver on all those games, like you're saying, maybe they can turn it around and seize on this opportunity while Sony is kind of like, you know, figuring out what's going on internally.
I like Starfield for Xbox because I said this in my video. It's like the one kind of game Sony doesn't have in their roster. You know, like they have open world games, and I saw people trying to compare Horizon to Starfield. They're not really comparable because you can't interact with the world in Horizon. It's a huge world, but all you're really doing, it's like built to be a combat playground, really. It's like you go in an area, you find some leaves, you find some sticks, you craft some arrows, then you fight the robot dinosaurs. It's like always funneling you towards combat. Whereas in Starfield, you could make a stack of sandwiches, or you can rebuild the Millennium Falcon, or you can be a pirate. You can do so much more in that world, and that's why it's not as graphically insane as Horizon. Like there's trade-offs, right? So I wish they had a game like that in their roster, but I think it's good that Microsoft now has a game that Sony is not excelling at. This feels like the Xbox 360 generation, when if you had a 360, you were playing Gears of War and Halo, and it was like awesome. And if you had a PS3, you were playing Gran Turismo, Uncharted, and Infamous. Like they had different kinds of games that they were both good at, and now it seems like we're maybe getting back to that, which is what I want.
Yeah, and that's fine. Like, PlayStation does their thing, Xbox does their thing. Like, they don't need to have, like, I feel like platform holders, they don't have to have, like, oh, what's the Xbox version of Uncharted? Or, like, PlayStation, oh, what's the PlayStation version of Halo? You know, it's like, just let them be separate and, like, do their own things. And, like, hopefully it works out.